It takes exactly 2 seconds for a human mind to realize it has become completely invisible. She didn't look at him when she said it. Instead, her focus was locked onto her own reflection, her hand perfectly steady as she traced a thin black line across her eyelid. The words came out with the cold, flat efficiency of someone reminding their partner to lock the back door or buy milk. Just act like you're not with me tonight. There was no malice in her voice, and that was precisely what made it feel like a physical blow. He didn't move. He watched her through the glass, observing the quiet calculation of her features, searching for some sign that this was a joke. But there was nothing. "Okay," he said. The response was clean, empty, and devoid of the anger she might have expected. It was the sound of a door quietly clicking shut. The drive to the party was defined by a heavy, suffocating silence. She sat in the passenger seat, her face illuminated by the cold blue glow of her phone. Occasionally, a faint smile would touch her lips at a message he would never see. He kept both hands locked at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel, staring straight ahead. He wasn't angry. He was simply observing the space between them expand until it felt wider than the highway. When they pulled up to the curb, she was already half out the door before the engine had even died. She leaned back in just far enough to press a brief, dry kiss against his cheek. "Don't be weird about it," she said, her voice carrying a playful, dismissive edge. He nodded once, watching her walk toward the brightly lit entrance without looking back. She merged into the crowd, effortlessly, as if she had already forgotten he was parked outside. And in that moment she had. The apartment was quiet when he returned. It wasn't the peaceful quiet of an empty home, but rather a heavy, pressurized silence that filled the rooms. He stood in the dark hallway for a long time, the keys cold in his hand. There was no sudden rush of adrenaline, no dramatic outburst of tears, just a slow, cold recalibration of his reality. He pulled a suitcase from beneath the bed, the zipper sounding unnaturally loud in the empty space. He didn't hesitate. He didn't sit on the edge of the mattress to debate his choices. He simply began to pack. He took only the essentials, the clothes he wore most, his laptop, a few books, and his chargers. Every movement was deliberate, almost mechanical. Occasionally, a memory would flash across his mind. A shared laugh in the kitchen, a quiet morning, the warmth of her hand. But the memories didn't hurt. They passed through him like static, leaving no trace behind. By the time he closed the suitcase, the apartment looked virtually unchanged. That was the most unsettling part of it all. His departure left no visible scar on the room. He placed his keys on the kitchen counter, positioning them exactly where she would see them, and walked out. 6 hours passed before his phone finally came alive. He was sitting on the edge of a bed in a sterile, temporary room that smelled of industrial detergent. The screen lit up his face in the dark. "Where are you?" The words sat on the screen, demanding an explanation he didn't feel obligated to give. He set the phone face down on the nightstand. 10 minutes later, another message arrived. "Are you seriously not here?" He watched the screen flicker, but did not move to touch it. Then came the third. "Did you go somewhere?" The tone was still laced with mild annoyance, the secure assumption that he was simply playing a game. He stared at the ceiling, listening to the unfamiliar hum of the air conditioner. For the first time in years, the noise inside his head had stopped. Then the final shift came. "This isn't funny," the text read. He picked up the device, his thumb hovering over the glass. "I moved out," he typed. He sent it. The response was almost instantaneous, breaking the silence of the room with a rapid sequence of alerts. "What? Why? Are you serious right now?" He didn't feel the urge to explain the intricate architecture of his decision. The decision was already a physical reality. The words were just catching up. He typed his final defense. "You asked me to act like I wasn't with you," he wrote. "I realized I didn't want to pretend anymore." He watched the 3 typing dots appear, dance, and disappear. "That's not what I meant," she replied. He actually believed her. She hadn't meant to destroy the relationship. She had simply assumed he would tolerate the disrespect. But the intent no longer mattered. The impact had already severed the connection cleanly. "You're overreacting," her next message insisted. He looked at those words for a long time. They didn't sting. Instead, they offered a strange, liberating clarity. The gap between her reality and his was too vast to ever be bridged. "Maybe," he typed back, "but I'm still leaving." More messages poured in, alternating between defensiveness and quiet desperation. "So that's it?" she finally asked. He didn't answer. He placed the phone back on the nightstand, letting the quiet return to the room. There was no grand sense of triumph, no sudden wave of euphoric relief. Just a deep, grounding alignment with himself. He hadn't left to teach her a lesson or to prove a point. He had left because staying would have required him to agree to his own erasure, and that was a price he was no longer willing to pay. The phone buzzed one last time in the dark. He didn't reach for it. For the first time in a very long time, it simply didn't matter.